Okay, guys, I am back. I'm sorry it took a little bit of time to convalesce after the release of Blood of the Martyrs. It was a little bit of a sprint leading up to that release, but I really appreciate all of your support in helping to make this book a success. All of you that bought it, obviously, all of you that tweeted about it or talked about it on social media, and of course, it's been awesome as I've been doing some events to meet you guys in person. So thanks for your support. I have one big favor left to ask for you to do. If you wouldn't mind, I left a link for the book at Amazon. If you would go to Amazon and leave it a rating, if you'd leave a review, that would also be awesome. It would just completely help. So I would totally appreciate that. So today I'm going to talk about, because Green Monk is now done, I'm kind of now in this like post-mortem phase. And I should talk, I'll do a video more all about postmortems and why they're important, but I really like doing them. And so this is going to be a kind of a mini postmortem for Green Monk Blood of the Martyrs, but also this experience of having left my work, having quit Disney, and struck out on my own to make an artistic project. So in today's video, I want to talk about a few of the things that I learned from making Green Monk. Okay, so about 3 years ago, I left Disney Interactive, and I made a video about it, which you can see at this link, kind of my reasons for why I left Disney. And I wrote this video, the one through the link, kind of on the heels of my departure, talking about like why I quit my dream job to focus on making comics. So this video today is kind of a little bit of an update. It's kind of a little bit of, I quit my dream job, and now 3 years later, what have I learned? I'm probably not as cynical as I was then about working for the man, and maybe a little less idealistic about working for myself. The last 3 years have been a deeply educational and contemplative experience. It's given me insight into art, business, community, and how they all relate to one another, and my place in all of it as well. And if you stuck with me these last 3 years, from when I was making these videos in my dank, unfinished basement until now, you've watched me learn the lessons along the way. So these videos are mostly about me sharing the things I learn as I go about the journey and make all the mistakes. And if you want a deeper dive, you can always plumb the depths of my archive. I have over 70 videos in there now. Great stuff to listen to while making art, especially if you're me and you like listening to your own voice. So I wanted to share some of the lessons I've learned in the past 3 years in the process of striking out on my own, giving form to this little piece of my soul and my imagination in the pages of Green Monk. So I think the very first thing I learned, probably the most important lesson, is that it really sucks to work at home alone. I had more than one friend kind of make this comment or ask me like, how are you doing it? I don't understand how you're able to like stay on task and make yourself get stuff done and motivate yourself. And the truth is, it's hard for all of the reasons you may think it's hard. Working for yourself and trying to make something that no one is asking you to make and no one is paying for you to do is tough. Honestly, as a result of this book was not finished in the most efficient, productive way possible. I spent a lot of time wrestling with my own procrastination and laziness, and I wasted days and weeks that could have been used making comics. You can do the math. I did a 122-page book, and it took me 2 years to finish it. And I already had like the first 30-something pages started before I quit Disney. But I am a very persistent person, and I stuck with the problem, and over time, little by little, figured out how to make things work for me. And here are the little sub-lessons under this heading of don't work at home alone that helped me solve this problem. So, one, I got out of the house. I started working at coffee shops and the library, and I even tried working at there's like these free little offices at Kinko's or FedEx office, whatever they call it. They're all great places to work. They're either pretty close to free or totally free to work at. But also I did end up staying at home a lot and trying to work at home a lot. And all those days of procrastinating or binging on Netflix when I should have been working left a really bad taste in my mouth for being at home by myself. And now I'm at the point where I hate being home alone by myself. And in some ways making the mistake and making it enough put me in a place where I just don't ever want to go there anymore. I hate how I feel in the situation. I know it's a path that leads to misery, and it leads there very, very quickly. And so that was kind of one of those experiences where that mistake and making that mistake enough really set me on the right path And where I eventually ended up was at a co-working space. I found an affordable space that wasn't far from my house that I really loved. I got along great with the owner, but my productivity immediately went through the roof when I made that move. And I had been so resistant to paying for office space, but the co-working model made it so much easier to justify. Over the course of the year, it was a reasonable total expense. Um, I eventually moved on from that space, but I still have like only the best of memories of it, and I would highly recommend it. If you're ever in Salt Lake City and you need a temporary space to work out, please check out Workive and tell Mark I sent you. The one caveat to working at home is that it's much different when there are other people at home. I went through a period when I was laid off at EA and before I started at Disney where I was still getting severance and looking for work, and I worked at home on freelance and personal work while my wife was home with the kids. And that's a totally different experience. It all gets back to the same principle. You know, there's something about just having other people around, even if they aren't people to answer to. I feel like it decreased my anxiety. It made me feel like I wanted to work, and just put me in this state of mind where I just was more productive. The other sub lesson in this kind of don't work at home alone is this alone part. Maybe actually this is what it's all about, not working alone. One of the most profound lessons I've learned in this time is how completely essential community is. Not just to making art, not just for networking, not for our emotional health, but also just like our very basic ability, my ability to solve problems and to do things. There's certain triggers in our brain that can only really be triggered when we're with others and working on problems with others. And you know, the more I involved others in the process of making Green Monk, the smoother things progressed. Humans are just built to act collectively, and detaching yourself from the herd can be a deeply disorienting experience. So you need some sort of feedback just for your brain to function normally. You need to be able to do some work and have real human beings respond to it in some meaningful way for your brain to move on to the next point. So, and clearly there are like issues of incentives too. Why is doing this task today any better than doing it tomorrow? No one is going to follow up with me. No one is going to care if I do this right this minute or if I put it off till tomorrow. You know, sure, at some point, if I don't produce anything, there will be social consequences, but it's hard to justify the urgency and importance at any one moment. You know, it's even more discombobulating is that no one will really care if I do get something done. There's no consequences for not doing something and no reward for doing something until this abstract, distant future date when a book finally hits the shelves. So as soon as I did something as simple as hire coloring assistants to help with the book, it immediately turned the book into this collaborative project, but also something that was real. And, you know, that's the magic of being human. As soon as two people share an idea, it becomes as real as a physical object. You know, a dollar bill that only one person agrees is a dollar bill is only a piece of paper. But as soon as two people agree what it is, it suddenly magically gains power. And you get a whole nation and a whole world to agree on its value, and it has power to control the world. An artistic project is no different. Finding a collaborator, even if you have to pay them a bit, completely changes how your own mind conceives of the project. Of course, deadlines are also very helpful. I did a couple of freelance comic projects while I was making Green Monk, and the magic of the deadline was that I finished things more quickly, but I was also less stressed about things. One of the stresses of working for yourself is how you can be overwhelmed with possibilities. Well, I'm going to be talking about this a little bit, so I'll talk about that in a second. But you know, much of those challenges with not having deadlines came from the fact that Green Monk was done as a spec project. I didn't have a publisher commit until after it was finished, so there was no commitment from that end. And you know, I really don't think I'll be doing that again. My next project, I want to get a green light from a publisher before I start the project, just so I have that commitment and expectation to push me forward on the project. And that whole issue of deadlines is a really delicate one too. I also had at least one project that I accepted with far too tight of a deadline, and the quality of the project suffered a bit. So it needs to be enough of a deadline to keep you on task, but not too much to derail the project and make you like compromise what you're doing, compromise your work. Ideally, I'd love to be doing a monthly book, so I have a deadline every month. That would be great, with maybe a couple months of buffer every year. But you know, any type of deadline, even if it was just a yearly deadline, would be super helpful. Okay, so enough on working at home and working alone. You know, maybe it works for you. Some people make it work and they stay connected online and stuff like that. It didn't work for me. So next lesson, you need a long launch ramp for breaking into comics. And maybe, honestly, your plane will never take off. But you still need that launch ramp just to have that chance that it's gonna take off. I honestly know lots and lots of published writers and artists that haven't quit their day job yet. Even in the best of circumstances, it takes time, years to get to the point where you're making money from others reading your stories. I've spoken to so many people making a living from comics, and it's a constant. It takes that time to build up the audience and to really make a living doing it. It's like it's kind of like there's breaking into comics and then there's breaking in. You can get your work published by a major publisher, but crossing the threshold where you're paying bills from comics work is another even higher and more kind of elusive barrier. And I think it's a task that requires patience more than anything else. And not that patience is a guarantee either, but it's a necessary part of that if. So if I were to give some advice, I would say think about how you're going to work in the meantime and make a plan that allows for patience. Live with your parents if you have to. Live simple so you can have a low stress, flexible job that covers your bills but allows you to work. Say yes when your wife offers to go back to work. Do your comic at the downtimes at your day job if you feel like you're willing to try and get away with that. Or if you need to, get up early, stay up late. Just be aware it's going to be a long haul, and make sure whatever plan you make, you can sustain in the long term, and make sure that you have the support to do it, that you are, you have people in your life that are going to be supportive of that commitment and that have that same passion as well. And, honestly, I'm not there yet. I haven't seen a check from the sales of Blood of the Martyrs yet, although sales for the Green Monk Mini have bumped up some, but definitely not enough to pay the bills. I mean, getting a couple orders per week of a $5 cover price book is encouraging, but yeah, it's not making a living. Okay, the penultimate lesson. So the other really important thing I learned is you have to narrow your focus to make it on your own. I kind of referred to this before when I was talking about deadlines, but you have to take choices away from yourself. One way to think about it is that this is kind of why. So I want to explain why. Every once in a while, you have to do like a strategy session where you look at all of your options and decide what choices to cut, what options to remove. And this can be stressful, and it takes a lot of brain damage to work out where to focus your energies. And you may want to bring others into the conversation. I really like to, when I'm having this conversation, I like to talk to my brothers, I like to talk to my wife. But once I complete this strategy session and kind of kill off all the other options, my work gets easier. And you want to be doing these strategy sessions every once in a while, and on a smaller scale, at a certain level every week, it helps to do something like this. But when you don't make those decisions at a high level, then you end up going through that process every single day. So you don't want to have a strategy session every single day. It's too stressful. For me, I want to focus my energies on getting started, avoiding distractions, and solving the tough problems I have to solve to make art just for that day. So narrow your focus. It's going to make your day-to-day efforts way easier if you can every once in a while take that time to eliminate options. And it's funny, I'm actually in this phase again right now where I've completed one project and I have to decide what the next project is going to be, and my productivity has suffered. And it's for this very reason. My options are wide open again. And I spend a lot of time every day kind of strategizing instead of working. And so I really need to get to the point where I can narrow those options again and start to focus on work again. So my last lesson, and probably the most important lesson, is this. After all the time and effort and sacrifices, it's worth it. I haven't seen a dime yet for the 5 years I put into making Blood of the Martyrs. I quit Disney 3 years ago to do it, but I was working on it before then while I was at Disney little by little. But I have no regrets. We are all authors of this future human history book. The choices we make every day write the story of our lives. And once you make a piece of art, it's forever cataloged into that history of the human race and the history of you and your family. It's something your children can look back at with pride. It's something that you can look back at as your life stretches out and gain satisfaction and peace with the life you've lived. I feel completely and utterly privileged to have had the ability and opportunity to make Blood of the Martyrs. I hope I have the opportunity to make more art, but the handful of stories that I have had the chance to tell with my voice, unadulterated, have been so satisfying that they might be enough. And I go through cycles of depression. I've mentioned this before. I have ups and downs. But the downs can never cut me quite as deeply. It can't cut into the pride I have in my work. It can't cut into the pride I have as a father and a husband and a friend. I mean, good works and a good life have this kind of indefatigability that can weather any storm, or can help you weather any storm. So, man, I feel like I'm giving a sermon. So, if you want to give some amens, that's totally okay. No one else is around. You can say it. But, make some art. It's why you were put on this earth. So those are just a few of the lessons I learned over the course of these last 3 years. Of course, if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. And yes, I will get back to answering them. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.